Let's move on to the next part in terms of the election and what could have been a major turning point. The FBI, waited specifically to cover this with you, Krystal, has now charged the same prosecutor who charged Hunter Biden with tax evasion with the gun charge, has now began prosecuting charge and will and intends to prosecute a witness that came forward and alleged that the Biden family had approached the Ukrainians for a, quote, $10 million bribe. If you are familiar with this was subject of a Chuck Grassley letter that was leaked about last year that came forward from an alleged witness that had all of this incriminating information. I actually covered it also at the time, although unlike Fox News, I've not been clinging it to it for over a year now as evidence of quote-unquote Biden family corruption. And while there certainly may be some, this particular instance, this man has now been charged with lying, which is a bit of a problem for some people over at Fox News, which have been beating the drum on this. Let's take a listen to the credence that they gave this gentleman.
A veteran FBI informant alleging both the president and Hunter Biden each took $5 million in bribes.
The details come from an FBI informant who is very trusted.
A highly reliable informant that has always checked out. All the information he's ever given us is checked out.
We have determined that whistleblower is extremely credible.
This is a very crucial piece of our investigation.
A confidential human source that had been reliable previously to the FBI.
A confidential informant that they had on the payroll.
Documented allegations of bribery from a trusted FBI confidential human source has now finally been released. Now, its contents are devastating.
So, as you can see, didn't work out so well for them. Let's put this up there on the screen after the news went and leaked. Quote-unquote, GOP lawmakers used it to claim President Joe Biden is corrupt. FBI source now charged for allegedly providing false information on Biden's, which was then cited by Republicans. We're talking about Russian individual Alexander Smirnov. One count of making a false statement and one count of creating a, quote, false and fictitious record related to statements that he made to the FBI on a Form 1023. The charging documents say that we approached the FBI as an alleged confidential source, but fabricated and provided false information to the FBI, which was then leaked specifically to Senator Chuck Grassley, who took the step of then releasing that claim several years ago, as we said, to say that a Ukrainian oligarch had pushed the president, the Biden family had approached this Ukrainian oligarch to pay them $10 million. Now, this was a key part of like the Ukraine corruption story that was kind of ancillary to Burisma and some of the other verified claims there, Krystal. But nonetheless, I mean, it's a terrible look because they're hanging all of their hat on this.
Yeah.
And while it was not, the central part of the prosecution, that's exactly why you are supposed to not be totally credulous about all of this. One of the reasons I feel credulous, quote unquote, about Burisma is A, Hunter admitted it, and the money is verified. It's right there. We can literally see it in wire transfers that have been verified now by the IRS, the FBI, House investigators, etc. With this one, all you ever had was the claim of this single individual,
right,
which is the problem from the very beginning.
Well, they're trying desperately to make a connection between the money that Hunter was receiving and money received directly by Joe Biden. Because rightly people say, okay, yes, what Hunter did was corrupt, trading on the Biden family name. It's very clear he's doing that. It's very clear that Biden's brother has done that. And we're talking about over decades that this has been longstanding Biden family practice. But that doesn't directly implicate Joe Biden. And also, I mean, honestly, that pales in comparison to what Kushner and Trump himself are doing in terms of cashing in on the position, their name, the presidency, et cetera. So they really, really wanted to make this direct monetary connection. And so that's why they relied so heavily on what was just basically an unvetted allegation made at the FBI, which, if I recall correctly, you covered as such at the time.
That's right.
The irony here is that, I mean, that's exactly what the quote-unquote Steele dossier was. It was someone who had been an FBI informant in the past, as had this individual, and that's part of why they gave him credence as oh, well, he's said stuff that was true to the FBI in the past, so this must also be true. Well, the same could be said of Michael Steele, and of course, they spent years, rightfully, lambasting Democrats for completely hanging their hat on this one dude and the stuff that he, clearly made up out of thin air. And now they're in the same situation. Now, the people who are leading the Biden impeachment over this allegation and other allegations of corruption, they claim, the House Republicans, Jamie Comer et al., that, oh, no, this wasn't really central to the impeachment. But that's a lie. Clearly they had hung a lot on this dude's allegations.
Well, they were hoping for it to come true. Yeah, exactly.
And Comer himself went on Fox News no fewer than 200 times to talk up this story with this dude's claims at the center of what he was saying. Sean Hannity was a primary culprit of like relying wholesale on what this individual had to say. And, you know, it turns out, and the evidence is pretty compelling, that he just made it up. It was just a lie. He hates Joe Biden. He had like an axe to grind, and he decided to try to push this claim and see where he could get with it. And it looks like where he's going to get is probably some prison time.
Right, yeah. I mean, look, he should go to jail. People who, you know, lead people on goose chases and all of that. And also we should do, the Steele dossier point is fantastic, and it's also very important. There also is something we wanted to kind of roll into this because it does kind of thematically fit. Let's put this up there on the screen. There has been a massive wave, actually, of high-profile Republicans who are quitting the House GOP. And kind of what it comes down to is that the vast majority of these people who are leaving, it's almost unheard of to leave whenever you have the majority and whenever you are likely projected to continue the majority, whenever you are the chairman in many cases of, you know, the Energy and Commerce Committee, or you have a high-profile position on the U.S.-China Committee, like Mike Gallagher, who recently just announced that he would retire. You have Mike Pence's brother who said he would retire. Many of the people who are announcing their retirement were people who had not only decades-long careers left in the House, but in the immediate term would have had power in the committee system. And one of the reasons that they're leaving is like, listen, you know, we don't do anything. We don't pass any laws. We had all this Kevin McCarthy nonsense. We keep going down these impeachment or whatever rabbit holes, and that's fine, you know, as long as we get to continue any serious work. But they just feel as if it's completely irrelevant, and they're like, yeah, why should I have to fly back and forth between Washington and my district or whatever just to come here and do fake votes that don't actually mean anything or matter at all? Even my committee work, for example, it's not like bills are being reported out of committee these days. They just get drawn up by the leadership 3 days before. They send it to you and they're like, hey, you got to vote for this or you're out of the Republican Party. What do you do? I mean, it's a terrible job in many respects for a lot of these folks. Most of them are rich, you know, so for them, they're like, why should I stay? I'll just leave. I don't blame you.
I'll go be a lobbyist. I'll go cash in,
yeah,
et cetera.
why wouldn't you? I would do it too if I was stuck in there.
I mean, let's be clear. Almost all of what these people want to quote unquote accomplish and govern is bad. So it's not like I'm not mad at the House GOP dysfunction. But the thing that I also think is interesting, so just to give you some of the numbers, 23 Republican lawmakers decided not to seek re-election or resigned early. That includes, and this is the part that is kind of astonishing just based on history, 5 committee chairs.
Right, yeah, that's crazy.
You guys, I mean, it's hard to explain how coveted these positions are. People work their entire careers to climb up the frickin' ladder to be, you know, in these various committee positions. And so at the point where they've actually like achieved the goal of their many years of ambition, they're like, it's not worth it. Like, it's not worth it. None of this is worth it. And I think it is noteworthy that, listen, they can read the polls. They see it's very likely that Trump is going to be back. And you would think in an ordinary political moment that the fact that you are going to have an ally back in the White House as president of the United States would make you more likely to stay, because then you say, oh, well, then, you know, we're not far from being, they have a very good shot at taking back the Senate. They have a very good shot at holding on to the House, although it is precarious. I mean, their majority is balanced on a knife edge, but they have a very good shot of having the House, the Senate, and the presidency. And so to have that situation and have this many people, especially committee chairs, being like, I'm out, I think that is actually really quite extraordinary. And so it speaks to the fact that having Trump in the White House for a lot of Republicans is not a benefit. It's a pain in the ass.
Right.
Because then what happens? I mean, they're still not governing. Everything they're getting asked is just questions about like the latest bullshit that Trump did or said or, you know, tweet or truth that he sent down or whatever. And they just don't want to deal with it. So I think that part is also really fascinating, that they have a very good shot at having the trifecta of the House, the Senate, and the White House. And they're still like, in fact, because of the fact that Trump is likely to be back there, that is part of the motivation for them wanting to get out of town and snag their corporate board seats and lobbyist gigs while the getting is still good.
Like you just said, I mean, in the Trump era, when a Republican senator, and I know some of these people, here's mostly what your job consisted of. You do nothing while you're here. While you walk down the hallway, you get accosted by these reporters, and they're like, have you seen the latest Trump tweet on Mika Brzezinski's facelift?
Yeah, exactly.
And you're like, well, I don't condone what the president says, but, I'll see him in November in my district.
It's
whatever.
humiliating.
It is
absolutely humiliating.
Yeah, I wouldn't do it either.
Yeah.
So, look, I do not begrudge them for leaving, but it is certainly, whether it's a crisis or not, I don't know. They will all be replaced. All of their jobs will continue. The people replacing them probably believe the same things.
And
will they be
almost
less
all
serious
these people are in safe Republican seats.
Exactly.
So it doesn't particularly further imperil the GOP majority, but it just is a very unusual situation to have this many people who are this highly placed facing the prospect of a continued majority to be like, I'm out, I'm done.
Hey guys, if you like that video, go to breakingpoints.com, become a premium subscriber, and help us build the best independent media organization on the planet.
That's right. We're subscriber funded. We're building something new. We want to replace these failing mainstream media organizations.
So again, to subscribe, it's breakingpoints.com.